welcome to United for Good. I'm Margaret O'Neill with United Way of Central West Virginia. As always, our thanks to the West Virginia Library Commission and the Library Television Network for allowing us to be part of their programming. And thank you if you're watching today or flipping channels and stop when you see or hear my voice for taking a minute to learn a little more about the United Way. It is this time of year where we're very engaged with our community to do workplace campaigns and presentations about our United Way goal for this year. Our attempt to raise $1.7 million to be able to award out into grant programs across Central West Virginia. Just as a reminder, is our counties that we serve are Kanawha, Putnam, Boone, Logan, Clay, and Braxton counties. So if you're a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 within those 6 counties of Central West Virginia, we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about how you could potentially apply for funding from our United Way, what that would look like, and what programming we would be looking at for funding purposes. The other thing that we do this time of year is raise money, obviously talking to folks and businesses about how your donation could support the work we do in Central West Virginia, focused on education, health, financial stability, and the ever important safety nets that really hold our communities together through their personal disasters and strife that families face. So it is that time of year. If you haven't seen us, we haven't been to visit, or you're just not quite sure what that means, we so invite you to reach out to us at our United Way office. Stop by if you'd like. We're on the corner of Court and Smith Street here in Charleston. You can find us on Facebook or on the web at unitedwaycwv.org. We'd love to share more about what we do and how we do it, and how you or your company could get more involved. It's also the time of year where it's starting to get a little chilly, so we're right in the middle of our sock drive and cold weather drive. If you have some used coats in the closet, maybe too little, too big, just tired of it, and you'd like to make a donation to the United Way, we would love to add that to our coat rack to make sure that our friends and neighbors who may be just a little short on money and not be able to have to choose between groceries or buying a new coat for themselves or their children, that they're able to utilize our coat rack. So if you'd like to learn more about our cold weather drive and how you could donate things to support folks who may be just not as fortunate as you are, we'd love to talk to you about that as well. So that's a little housekeeping about where we are at the United Way right now. And the thing that we always want to do to the communities that we serve is make sure you know and are familiar with the people who are so important to our organization. So we have 2 guests today. Our first guest is our brand new, I still call him the new guy, our brand new Chief Financial Officer, Scott Menifee. Scott, welcome to the show today.
Hello.
Hello, are you excited to be here?
Every day is a new exciting adventure.
Scott might be the funniest guy on our team. We didn't know that when we hired him, but it's sure been a pleasure. For me, what's important are 2 things. We want people to know a little bit about where you came from, so I'll just ask you to share a little about, you know, you're from this area, about your family, and we'll talk a little bit about your work background, and then we'll talk about how you help us ensure that we know where every dollar, donor dollar that comes into the United Way is treated safely and well, and that we can share that with people. But first, let's start with tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your family.
I'm from Charleston. I grew up probably about 2-3 blocks just down the street, so came to the Capitol quite often, visit and see things. Went to school system straight through, graduated from Capitol High, went to college up at West Virginia Wesleyan, got my undergraduate, and then I got a master's at WVU through their online program. First part, probably spent about 15 years or so in public accounting, predominantly on the tax side, and then I've
had enough of that.
Yeah, again, it's a learning experience, and it tells you what you don't want to do, but again, it taught a lot. It was nice to get that kind of background. And then I was on the governmental side. I worked at KRT for 10, 15 years, and then
found your way
looking for a change, yeah, and looking at the nonprofit area now.
So we're thrilled to have you. I was just sharing with you, Sean has been on our show before from KRT, Sean Hill, who we love so much and really value the work, and I know he valued your work, but we are sure grateful that we found you when we did, and that you were able. Is KRT a nonprofit technically? No, they're governmental, right? Because they're funded federally.
Quasi non-government.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
I
a
remember
strange
that now.
entity, but yeah.
Yeah, so some of each kind of. So we're really your first full nonprofit endeavor.
Correct, full time. I mean, you had some stuff on the side, work on some. I mean, I've grown up playing soccer, helped with my daughter, various groups like that. You know, I've worked with organizations.
Talk about that a minute. So a lot of people I run into are like, well, when we posted his picture on Facebook and said, new CFO meet Scott Menifee, I got so many phone calls that said, oh, I know him from soccer and I played with him or he coached my kids. And so I know that's been a big passion. Talk a little bit about that.
This, I was going to say my daughter graduated from high school year before last, and this will be the first time now I haven't played soccer, been involved in it in some capacity, playing, coaching, officiating, but ever since I was probably 6 years old. But I had played all the way through school.
Did you play in college?
Played up at college at Wesleyan, and then once I got out with it, a friend of mine from high school, his little brother was playing. They just started up in the school system at the middle school. It was junior high at that point level. And I just went to watch them play, knew a person helping out, kind of volunteered, and then spent the next 25, 30 years it was coaching. Took a little gap in there. I'd coach the boys. I was able to go back and coach at my alma mater at Capital, which was fun. We won a state championship, but a lot of memories, a lot of kids seeing them now, seeing them coach, just seeing their kids play. It's neat. Had one of them call the other day. His kids were playing. They were out in the Huntington area, and they were getting ready for the playoffs this week. So he was excited, and he said, if you get a chance to come on out. But then coached my daughter, did the rec program, and she went all the way through. But she wasn't playing in college, so it was kind of nice. She knew she wanted to do the school stuff. She did a lot for me, but it gave us a good time to bond and stuff. But I mean, it's a pretty neat experience. But again, it takes a lot of time. It's like anything. You can't wait for the season to start. But then you can't wait for it to end, either win or lose, and everybody's at that point right now where sectionals, high school's starting up right now, so there's still a silver lining or gold. If you're out, you're done there for a while.
I've told you this, I think, but I prayed that my son would not pick an outdoor sport so that I wouldn't have to sit out and freeze, and so that excluded soccer, and I was really glad we played basketball. Tell me, from your coaching perspective, what was your favorite part?
It was interacting with the kids, being able to, because they would give you the honest answers. They were up front with you, and it was just kind of like, say, the bond experience you had there. It gets worse. I mean, people over time, the parents and stuff, it's frustrating. They're not there all the time. They don't see everything. But again, now where people can just pick and choose and go different places, it takes quite a bit away from it. But again, if you could just worry about the coaching part, that would be great. But it was good facility-wise. We did a lot of improvements and everything, and it's neat seeing all that stuff there now when we come back to schools and everything. Yeah.
So as you transitioned into the nonprofit work and the work that we do, I think it's interesting that because you hear us talk a lot about kids and what we see and the worry we have for the youth in West Virginia, specifically the youth in our 6 counties and the struggles they face and the opportunities they lack. And so I think it's an interesting intersection for you that you kind of heard and saw those kids, and now you can kind of see the action on the other end where we try to meet those needs and fill those gaps that they might have that you heard about.
Yeah, every day you learn something new. You think, like I was saying, it's 2 steps up, 1 back as far as new things, learning and all. But again, I wasn't aware of the involvement the United Way has in the area, with the community, local, and beyond. And again, it's just amazing how many things it does touch. But again, like I say, a lot of that's with the kids because that's with the future and everything. So
you learned something about the United Way since you started working with us?
I learn every day from you. Yes, there's not a question about that.
Oh,
but again,
that
there's
was
just
the right
so much
answer.
you don't know, and you got appreciation for it. So then it's just trying to do what I can to help out.
So I think, and he picks up trash, just to give you an idea that all of us at the office, nobody is better than anybody else, and we all try to do all the things that need done, but Scott's sometimes the first one on the premises, so it's not uncommon that he walks around and picks up trash in the morning. I do want you to share really quickly about the story this past week when we heard that there might be a young person panhandling and your reaction to that, because I think that was just so telling of what you're talking about, that you just don't know what we do and that we react, on a dime when necessary.
You can prepare for your day, when you wake up in the morning, what you're planning on doing. But again, it's putting fires out, and then you've just got the unexpected. Again, when they had the call that they said it was a child out there panhandling, and it's one of those, you hope it's not true, you have an idea of possibly what it is, but you have to check to confirm it. And then again, who knew that was going to be on your list of things to do that day?
Yeah, so we tend to react and act both at the call. So, public calls us sometimes, and that's what happened. Actually, it was a staff person or a friend of the United Way who drove by and saw this person, and we're really concerned that it was a little. And, as we thought we knew the client that it might be, but the one time you don't go check would be the one time it really is a young person. And so Carrie and team, Carrie and Emily, left on assignment to go make sure. And I think for new folks, that's just or folks that just don't know us, if you're just watching the show or you're just meeting the United Way for the first time, it really is that. We feel a gap, and sometimes the gap is that a kid out there panhandling, and if so, what are you going to do about it, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and so for you to know, what we would have done about it is we have connections and contacts and collaborative partners, and so it wouldn't have necessarily been Carrie and Emily that made a decision about what to do with a youth that was in a scary spot, but they would have known exactly who to call to handle that situation in the very best possible way. So that's your United Way, collaborative partners across our footprint, across the state, and sometimes across state lines to make sure that people are served and needs are met, and it's not always that we know what those needs are going to be. I'm gonna let you off the hook here in just a second, but before we take a quick break, and then we're going to bring Katharina on and let you hear a little bit about our funding opportunities that are coming up. I just want you to, I guess, just take a look in the future, right? And what would be the kind of the vision of what you see for your role at the United Way moving forward? More comfortable, I don't use that because I know it's still new, but I mean, do you see yourself getting more involved in some of the work that we do?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, it's a catch up. The time of the year when everything happened with the audit, the year end, getting everything closed out, and with the grant activities that we're involved with, they're all the same, but they all have unique differences that to have to learn all those, and to help out when we get the new staff, to give them reassurance, I think would be nice to be able to do, where they do come and they look for help and ask questions. But to be able to have those answers, and then from there, to get more involved and to help out with some other stuff would be nice, but it's still keep building.
Got to learn the job first, right? So for you guys watching, just to let you know, Scott is the only man in our building, and so sometimes that can be a little tumultuous, and he has a great sense of humor, and we think he's the perfect fit. What it means to you as a donor is this: we always want to be as clear and transparent as we can possibly be. If you've been a donor, thought about being a donor, planned to be a donor in this year's campaign, what's important to you is that you know where your money goes and how it gets there. And so Scott is responsible as our Chief Financial Officer, and he and I look closely every day at numbers and books, and he's the one who puts our financial statement together. But what I would say to you is this: if you have a question or you're curious about how we operate or what our financial statement looks like, or frankly any nonprofit, so what you should know is nonprofits are supposed to be built and created to be transparent, so that you as a donor feel very comfortable knowing that your dollar or two or 10, whatever that is to you, is important to us as it is to you. You work really hard. You do a lot to earn that money, and if you make a decision to trust us and choose us as a United Way to be your charitable gifter, that's who you want to give your charitable gift to, we want to make sure that you have all the confidence in the world about what we're doing with your money and how impactful it is to our community. So always want you to meet and know the face of our Chief Financial Officer. We invite you 8 to 4 to stop by our office and meet Scott or I personally, take a look at the financial statements, ask us questions, be comfortable in your heart and in your gut if you want to make a contribution, knowing that it's going to do and be all the things you want it to be in our community. Anything you'd like to add before I let you go?
Summed it up pretty good there.
Well, he's been a joy to have on the team. He started July.
1st of July,
Yeah, and he wasn't quite ready to start, and we made him start anyway, and so the honey-do list got behind right off of Jump Street, but we're grateful to have you, and I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're going to take just a quick break and then introduce you to Katharina Fritzler, who is our Community Investment Director, and she's going to tell you how you can get some funding from the United Way. We'll be right back.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
Welcome back to United for Good. I'm Margaret O'Neill with United Way of Central West Virginia. With me on our second half of the show is Katharina Fritzler. How are you today?
I am well, thank you.
So glad to have you on the show with us. And you know, you and I have talked before on the show. If people have seen us when you were new. Is this your second year?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like 20. I know how that feels. But you're starting your third year, finishing your second year.
Yes.
Great. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Katharina's role. And she fills one of the most important positions in our organization, whereas I'm trying every day to raise money. We all try to raise money, but falls on the kind of the development side of the office to raise the money and do everything we can to talk to everybody we can about how to make a donation, how to be a supporter or funder of the United Way. Katharina, her committee, and her team work equally as hard making sure that whoever receives those donor dollars are doing the absolute best that they can with their money, that they're fulfilling the obligations that we ask them to fulfill, and they're letting us know all kinds of information. And that funding cycle is about to open. So that's why I wanted to make sure that Katharina was with me and that we could share this out with everybody in the audience. Remember, again, we're 6 counties, so Kanawha, Putnam, Boone, Logan, Clay, or Braxton. If you're a 501c3 organization in any of those 6 counties, it makes you eligible to apply for funding from our United Way based on the impact areas that we, through community needs assessments and other ways to gather data that our community have told us are important to them and important to them as donors. So I'll let you share a little bit about what those impact areas are, and then talk a little about the letter of intent, and I'll just interrupt you with questions.
Okay, sounds good. So we have 4 impact areas, and those impact areas are based on the community needs assessment. And they're really great because they encompass so much of what we see on an everyday basis. So we have education, we have health, we have financial stability, and we have safety net. And we have been very fortunate to work with a lot of great nonprofits in the past, and I'm hoping to see some new nonprofits that maybe have started or we just haven't reached yet to apply. And we do have a training for new nonprofits that have never applied with us on November 7th at 8:30 a.m. You can call me to register at 340 340-3521. I apologize, I still have Virginia area codes on my mind.
That's okay. Yeah, or call the United Way office and we can connect you to Katharina. So if I'm a nonprofit, and maybe I'm maybe a fairly new nonprofit who's just not aware of all the funding opportunities, and maybe I don't have a full-time grant writer and I'm a little bit nervous about applying for United Way funding, how would you help me? What could you do to help me?
So the first thing I would recommend is coming to that training. We have a manual that's been designed to walk you through some of the more technical aspects, as well as a rubric that's attached to that manual so you can see what we are looking for specifically. In addition to that, I am available to answer any questions. I want to see everybody be successful. I just want to cheerlead the whole way through. So I tell people you can call me, you can email me, you can send me an Outlook invite, and I will take that time to hear you and see what we can figure out together.
Our grants are funded between $5,000 and $50,000, and it's funded by programs. So we do have nonprofit organizations who may be funded for 3 different impact areas. What comes to my mind right away is the YWCA here in the Kanawha Valley. We help fund programs within their family and women's homeless shelter, their domestic violence shelter, and their early childhood education facility, which is Mel Wolf. And so you can be one organization and really touch multiple parts of our impact, and that does mean you have to apply 3 different times and write us 3 different letters of intent. But the main thing to know is if you really want to go to the website, take a really good look at those impact areas and see where you think your program fits the best. And then if you have questions, reach out to Katharina about how to make sure you're in that niche. Talk a little bit about the difference in the letter of intent versus a full application and when that letter of intent opens.
So the letter of intent opens November 13th, and I will start doing an internal review after January 6th when it closes. The letter of intent is an introduction of you to us, and we have I would say it's the first review of 2 reviews. And we have trained citizen reviewers who are also our donors. So it's also a great way for you to meet with the people that are helping fund the program. And they're going to look over that letter of intent application, and they're going to make suggestions, and we'll come back to you with an answer. We'll say, we've been approved to move you forward, or you've been approved to move forward, but we need to see this in the grant, or we haven't been able to approve it this year, and here's why. They're very detail oriented with those decisions. But the letter of intent tells us who your agency is, and then what the program is. It tells us if you have a well thought out budget, if the program is based on evidence-based program models. It also tells us, if it's a new or pre-existing program. And so we get to see kind of that skeleton. Then if you make it past the letter of intent, we will send the grant application link to you. It is a closed application. You have to be invited to apply, and you will have to fill out a more detailed application. And we're going to look at financials at that point. We're going to look at outcomes. We're going to look at narratives, and we're going to look at success stories. But I think what is really amazing about our grant application process is those citizen reviewers go out and they meet with executive directors, program directors, and the board to see how the program is operating in person, because we understand that not everybody is the strongest grant writer, but you have a strong and amazing program that's changing lives. And so they come back to us, and they are the best advocates for we call them reviewers, but I like to think of them as advocates, because they will come back and they will make sure that that program gets what they need.
And when Katharina says citizen reviewers, I can't tell you that is the absolute truth. These are occasionally board members, but for the most part, these are folks, volunteers from within our community, bankers, lawyers, you name it. They're people who care about where the money's going and that they want to learn more about the nonprofits in their communities. And I can think of no better way to learn about what services are provided in our communities and to be a part of that citizen review committee. If that interests you, if you're looking for volunteer work and you're like, man, that sounds really like something that would be right up my alley, we'd invite you to reach out to Katharina and have that conversation. We're going to ask a little bit of questions. We have a little volunteer information that we like to get from our volunteers, but basically what happens is you get put in with a team of 1 or 2 other people that have maybe a little more experience, who've been doing it a year or 2 or more, and you go out with that team and you literally go visit the nonprofit that applied for funding. And what Katharina said is so true. We often see people who the grant itself just may not shine. It's got the basics, and we've got enough to know that we want to know more. But when the reviewers go out and meet the team and see the facility, and maybe if it's an after-school program, they actually see those kiddos, getting a snack and getting some mentoring and being taught, they come back to the review team and they're like, give them all the money. We want them to have all the money because they're great. And the opposite is also true. Sometimes we see people who are excellent grant writers or potentially pay someone to write their grant in a professional setting, and the grant looks fabulous and everything is, T's crossed, I's dotted, etc. And the citizen reviewers go to that location and come back back with a completely different feeling because it looked great on paper, but maybe didn't look so great in person. And so the confidence that we give you as a donor or a potential donor, we give you great confidence that we do know where your money's going and that it's doing the work that you have told us through community needs assessments or conversations, that that's the work you want to see done in Central West Virginia. So you can be one of those reviewers, and we certainly encourage you to be one of those nonprofits who might apply for funding. The other thing I want to just convey to people is, although it sounds a little intense, it's not hard, right? I mean,
No.
that's the whole thing.
No, it's not hard, and we are going to give you every tool in our toolbox to make you successful. And when I actually interviewed for this job, Margaret said, if you can fill out a United Way grant, we will get you to the point where you're filling out grants for the Benedum Foundation and the Palatine Foundation. So we want to work with you, and we want to see you grow and succeed, because if you are growing, you're helping more people.
Exactly, and that's the goal, right? So if it's an after-school program, we want to make sure you have the funding, that you don't have a waiting list for kids. If you're Canal Senior Services, we want to make sure that we can get you the funding, raise the money to lessen the waiting list for home-delivered meals. We want to make sure that the things that the people in our communities need the most, that we can help make available to you. And I can just tell you again, if this sounds like the money show, it kind of is. We can't do any of that without donor dollars. We aren't federally funded. The government doesn't look at us and say, oh man, those United Ways across the country do great work. Let's just give all of them money to go make their communities better. We wish they did, but that's not where we are. Where we are people like Katharina and I and Scott and I and the rest of our team and our board and those citizen reviewers and literally hundreds and thousands of you all who listen saying, I could give $20 a year, or I could do $25 a month. Whatever is, I can buy a $5 chance to win the duck race. I can pay $5 for a vote for Dancing with the Stars, but all of that money goes united together, united for impact, goes into our community impact fund, and those citizen reviewers are ever so important to help us make sure that we're giving and doing in the exact right places. We're going to run out of time, but I just want anything you want to share that I haven't asked you, or that tell the folks that might want to apply.
Just reach out to me at United Way, and I will get you started, and I will help you get there.
That's right. Don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Or if you've never done it before, certainly we love that. We love new organizations who reach out to us that are filling one of those impact areas, and we want to be able to meet you and talk to you about your work. And we're actually going to be touring a new group that reached out to us this week. So it's really important that we spread the love and spread the love around the communities based on what we see and what we know the needs are. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being with us today. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for letting me be here.
It's great. I think you can see just from Scott and Katharina what a team we have at the United Way. We are small but mighty, and together we can do a lot. When we talk about outcomes, and Katharina mentions those rubrics and what we ask back from our organizations, this is a part where I can tell you that 83,343 lives were impacted in a positive way, in a good way, by United Way dollars in 2023. And I said this to a group yesterday, there's not very many places when you can say, I'm going to give $25 a year and know that 83,000 plus lives are better because you did that. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of our United Way and United for Good. Please reach out to us if you have questions. Don't forget 211. Let us know if we can help you at all. And until we see you again, I'm Margaret O'Neill with the United Way of Central West Virginia.